To start the meeting now. The Voorhees Township Board of Education uses a rolling agenda concept. Items that are listed for a vote on the public board agenda are sent to the Board of Education members weekly as information items. Each member has the ability to request topics to be discussed in committee meetings as needed. The Voorhees Township Board of Education is conducting this meeting through video conferencing. Board members are asked to please state their name prior to making or seconding a motion or making a statement. The public is invited to attend the meeting remotely, and the instructions are on the Voorhees webpage. Public notice pursuant to the Open Public Meetings Act. Public notice of this meeting has been given by the board secretary in the following manner. Posting written notice on the official bulletin board at the Voorhees Township Public Schools Administrative Building on August 8th, November 11th, and November 20th. Sending written notice to the Courier Post on August 8th, November 11th, November 20th. Filing written notice with the clerk of Voorhees Township on August 8th, November 11th, and November 20th. And posting on the Voorhees Township Board of Education website on November 11th and November 20th. Can we please rise to salute the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Mr. Falk,
Here.
Ms. Galliano,
Here.
Dr. Levy,
Here.
Mr. Nelson,
Here.
Mr. Schmus,
Here.
Mrs. Van Auken,
Here.
Mrs. Watson,
Here.
Mr. Karff,
Here.
Mrs. Wallace.
Here. At this time, we're going to have service awards for the 2020-2021 school year. There we go. Sorry, I have to move this. I can't see. Mr. Bueller, Rick Bueller, Baylor, has worked as an educator for 31 years. He was hired as an 8th grade science teacher at VMS and has taught 8th grade science, 6th grade science, and reading. Rick also worked as a 6th grade vice principal at VMS for half the year, January 2018 through June of 2018. He has a master's degree in educational administration from Delaware Valley College and a bachelor degree of science in Earth and Space Science secondary education from East Stroudsburg University. He has taught science for 31 years, beginning at Camden Catholic High School in 1990. He also taught chemistry at Buena Regional High School for 1 year prior to joining the family at VMS. He also taught 2 semesters of college, lab sciences, evening courses at Burlington County Community College. There is a note from Mr. Bueller on the screen. He knew he was destined to become a science teacher because of the influence that his high school chemistry teacher had on him. She instilled the love for the subject, the encouragement to always try his best, and showed him that being a truly caring and influential teacher was all about. He hopes that he had the same impact on some of his students as she had on him and his lifelong love for science. He can hope that he will have had, he can only hope that he had the impact like that on one or more of his students. After 25 plus years in Voorhees, he is still passionate as ever about his role as a science teacher at VMS. He said he is truly blessed with the best staff members, the best community, the best leaders, and the best students. Voorhees is and always will be his extended family. Thank you, Mr. Baylor, for your service. There we go. Dawn Danley. Mrs. Danley began working at Signal Hill as an instructional associate and was teaching by January. She also worked in the administration building, child study team office, and then Voorhees Middle School. Ms. Danley taught self-contained classes at Signal Hill until she became a learning consultant on the child study team in 2000. She started out at administration building and then moved to VMS as a learning consultant in 2011. She holds a master's plus elementary teacher certification, teacher of the handicap, supervisor certificate, assistant technology certificate, completed all coursework for principal certificate. She loves to read and loves to play family games at home. Thank you for your service to our community. Eileen Penman. Ms. Penman formerly taught for 7 years in Hillsborough Township School District, transitional first grade and fourth grade, making this her 32nd year in education, with 25 completed in Voorhees. She earned her degree from the College of New Jersey, formerly Trenton State College, her bachelor's of science degree in education psychology, and her master's degree in reading from Rutgers Graduate School of Education. She's a certified reading specialist. Ms. Penman became the reading specialist at Signal Hill starting fall of 1995. She then worked as an 8th grade reading teacher. She is the Voorhees Middle School reading specialist from 2016 through the present. She is certified in teaching teen and children's yoga and meditation. And she serves on the West Jersey Reading Council Building Representative 2000 to the present through the present. And she was the former editor of the newsletter from 1995 to 2000. Thank you for your service, Ms. Penman. Sandy Rocco. Ms. Rocco has spent all of her career at Crescent. She even student taught at Crescent. She had the pleasure of teaching kindergarten, 4th, and 5th. Of her 25 years, 20 have been in 5th. She believes she found her niche. She loves to teach reading and writing. Ms. Rocco said she is proud to follow in her parents' footsteps. Her mother was a guidance counselor in Cherry Hill for 30 years, and her father was a teacher, professor of education, and a New Jersey state assemblyman whose district included Voorhees, who chaired the State Education Committee for many decades. Ms. Rocco, thank you for your service. Okay. Could I have a motion to approve the minutes of the meeting of October 28th, regular session and executive session, please?
Can I have a second before we move on?
Sure.
I just wanted to take a couple minutes, 2 seconds actually, to thank Rich and Bruce for their nearly 40 years of service to the board. Since I've met the two of you and both of you, every decision you've ever made was putting the school and the children of Voorhees first. And I want you to know how much I appreciate that. Thank you for your service and your time. And I'd like to welcome the new board members, but I also want to let them know that the bar has been set very high with you two leaving. So thank you.
Thank you, John. Thanks, John.
Yes, Rich, thank you. And Bruce, thank you very much for your service. And we appreciate all that you've done for our children.
Thank you, Rich.
Yeah, I echo the same sentiments, and I don't know what I'm going to do without you two helping me through, not knowing what to do on, figuring out the procedure and the process. And you guys have been really wonderful mentors to me specifically, and so I'm going to really miss both of you.
Thank you very much. We worked as a good team.
Thank you. Thanks.
I was going to say the same. It's a good team, and I hope that the new board members will recognize that this is a team effort, and each person, each member of the team is vital. Certainly 40 years of service is nothing to, it's remarkable. It's a lot of time that you both have spent on this board. I appreciate it.
Thank you. And I'm sorry, I'm going to break my rule, and I just have to chime in to echo everybody's sentiments about these two individuals, selfless servants to the youngsters of our community for over 40 years. Thank you, both of you. From the bottom of my heart, all the kids, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your service. You guys will be missed.
Thank you.
Yes,
Thank you,
thank
Jane.
you. Thank you, Bruce and Rich. We definitely appreciate your many years of service and dedication to our schools.
Thank you. Don.
Thanks. Thank you.
Okay, at this time, could I please have a motion to approve the minutes of October 28th, both regular and executive session?
Bruce Karff, my final motion to approve.
Dana, second.
Dr. Falk,
Approve.
Ms. Galliano,
Yes.
Dr. Levy,
Yes.
Mr. Nelson,
Yes.
Mr. Schmus,
Yes.
Mrs. Van Auken,
Yes.
Mrs. Watson,
Yes.
Mr. Karff,
Yes.
Mrs. Wallace.
Yes. Information items attached as Exhibit A is a list of fire drills and safety drills. There is nothing under communications. Board Secretary report.
Thank you. As of today, the official announcement or the official results of the election were on the County Board of Elections website. So I would like to congratulate Dr. Marissa Levy, Kelly Casenza, and Jason A. Price Sr. as our new board members effective January 6th is when we will swear them in. So congratulations. And also, I want to thank Mr. Karp and Mr. Nelson. It really was a pleasure working with the two of you, and you will be missed. The next thing
Thank you.
the next item is the update on construction projects. Clark has provided me a list of them, and we've gone out to view some of the projects. It was a busy summer getting these done, but Hamilton's Media Center has passed the code official's final inspection, and we have received our certificate of occupancy. And the VMS Guidance Suite has also passed inspection, and we received a certificate of occupancy. Both of them really are beautiful. So it was a great job, and thank you to Clark and Mark for overseeing them, as well as our architects, Lan. The other thing is to give an update on some of the COVID-related items. All but one of the UV ionizers, the rooftop ionizers, have been installed. There's one left to do. And again, we always had an alternate method of taking care of those interior classrooms, and now we have the ionizers. Touchless flushometers have been installed on all toilets and urinals for both students and staff. And the installation of touchless faucets is ongoing. We're currently at the middle school, and the contractor is averaging 5 to 6 faucets a day. Last of all, the UV sanitizing lighting fixtures are completed at Hamilton, Crescent, and Osage, and the balance of the fixtures are due to come in within 3 weeks. There has been a backlog on those, but we do have the mobile units that we've been using through all this time on the areas that didn't have the permanent fixtures installed. Thank you.
Thank you, Helen. Superintendent report.
Thank you, Madam President, and good evening to everybody. I'll also echo what's already been said and thank Mr. Karf, Mr. Nelson for their service, and it's been a real pleasure working with them so far this year, and I wish them only the best. At this time, I would like to recognize two of Voorhees' finest as well, in Helen Haley and also Christine Blizzard, for being recognized the Voorhees Breakfast Rotary Club Award winners. They were recently recognized, and in any other year there would be a dinner to celebrate them. But for now, we're just going to have to take this moment and just really congratulate them for all that they do for this community. As you know, Helen just does an excellent job as our business administrator, but she's gone above and beyond in regards to really taking a hands-on role in helping with the food service. And we've been able to distribute over 100,000 kids meals to needy students. And Christine Blizzard really, and she just does a lot for the kids. But one of the things that really should be mentioned is in her spare time, making face shields to deliver to local hospitals through the 3D printer, using that as a teachable moment for our students. She really exemplifies what it is to be a teacher in Voorhees. She just does an excellent job. So I'd like to recognize both of them at this time. I will jump out of turn just a little. And number 3, the student assessment results, or iReady results, are there for your review. If you have any questions, please reach out, and we'll go through those in detail. Number 2, I'd like to just update everybody on where we are with the road back plan. As you know, we had to make a pivot and change recently due to the county numbers, the pandemic numbers going up, the number of positive cases moving into the orange category throughout Camden County and much of the state. That has caused us to have to take a little bit of a pause in terms of some of the plans that we had hoped to be able to implement that would be, more aligned with getting us back to a traditional schedule, a normal school day and all that. We had to take a little bit of a shift. We have, as you know, we've moved into a remote schedule for our general education students. We are still providing hybrid instruction for our special needs students and students with disabilities. However, I just want to mention that there is another emergency meeting set up for Wednesday with the Camden County Health Department and the New Jersey Department of Education, where they anticipate the possibility of the county moving to what is known as the red status. And at that time, we'll have to consider the options available to us. The red option, according to the Camden County Health Department paperwork that they've put out, says that districts are supposed to go to a fully remote learning schedule at that time if we're in red. So we are going to have to wait and see how that meeting goes Wednesday to see if these numbers again change and if again their recommendation changes. I know it can be frustrating when there are mixed messages being sent out through the various offices throughout the state. Again, I just want to commend our teachers, our students, our parents for doing their best to make the most out of a difficult situation. And as you will also have noticed, we were able to implement one of the steps to add 30 minutes to the instructional schedule, which will provide additional dedicated time for our students and our teachers to work together. So that was a good step, I think, in the right direction, and we were able to implement that despite the news of the orange status and the rise in COVID cases in the county. We continue to feel that the schools are safe to the degree that everyone wears their personal protective equipment, practices social distancing and good hygiene. The challenge really leading into this orange category and into having to move to remote, one of the other complications that we had is whenever someone does report that they've tested positive, the contact tracing often takes out multiple staff members as well as students in the need to have to quarantine them. So again, that was a challenge to make sure that we could provide appropriate staffing to cover our classes. And again, as this continues to get, as the cases continue to rise in the county, that continues to be a challenge. But we will continue to monitor the data, monitor the advice provided by the health department and the New Jersey Department of Education, and I will do my best to keep everyone informed with that. At this time, that's the superintendent report for now. Thank you.
Thank you for that information and the update on the health department continually changing rules. At this time, Ms. Galliana, can you give us the policy committee report?
Yes, the policy committee met before this meeting. We discussed one new policy. It's just actually not a new policy. It's a policy we've already previously had. And they're just tweaking it. It's on procurement procedures for school nutrition programs, and that is managed by our board secretary at the current time. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Nelson, could you give the personnel committee report, please?
Yes, thank you. The Personnel Committee met on November 18th. There's two items on the agenda that we'll be asking the board to vote on: the food service and custodial salary guides, which were changed to reflect the increase in minimum wage. So we'll be asking the board to vote on that. We also discussed the CARES Act and the Family First Coronavirus Relief Act and the effect that it's having on our schools and substitutes. And we also discussed very briefly future strategic hires for the district. Thank you.
Thank you. Now at this time, Mr. Schmus, are you prepared to give us your presentation on our ad hoc committee?
Unmute, unmute.
I guess I should unmute first, right? Right, that's going to help. The ad hoc committee met on Tuesday evening, November 10th, to finalize two initiatives that we were tasked with from the Board of Education. Later in the agenda, you'll see that there's two motions that we're going to request a vote on. Two issues at hand were overcrowding at the Osage Elementary, and the second was the feasibility of a full-day kindergarten program. Before I move on, I want to thank members of the committee, Monica, Dawn, Dana, Bruce, Clark, Helen, Dr. Young, and Dr. Gentile. Special thank you to Clark and Helen, who literally did hours and hours of research to make sure that we had enough information to make an educated decision on this. The first initiative to address was the overcrowding at Osage School. The committee is going to recommend to the board tonight that we reassign approximately 125 students who currently attend Osage School to Hamilton and Crescent for the 2021-2022 school year. The plan frees up classrooms, very needed classrooms at Osage. I will defer to Dr. Young to give people the specifics if they have questions on where they're going, who's going where, to break that down. We may have questions later on. I don't know, Dr. Young, if you want to address that now, or would you prefer as a question? You hear that, Diane?
Yeah, I did. I can do that at the end. Why don't you present, and then
Okay.
I can read this.
Perfect.
Okay.
Yeah. Second, moving forward, the second initiative was to review the feasibility of providing a full-day kindergarten program for the children and families of Voorhees Township. We have heard you. We've heard the parents. We've heard everyone in Voorhees for a long time now, and we do believe, the committee believes, that it's time to move forward with this. We're very excited about this opportunity to offer this program for our children moving forward. It's definitely time to move forward on this. With the help of Clark and Helen, the administration, we believe we've come up with a terrific way to address the needs. So the first thing we'd like to do is implement the full-day kindergarten for 2021-22 school year by utilizing the existing classrooms in each building with temporary toilet room waivers for this year. Now, toilet room waivers are waivers that we would need to obtain from the state of New Jersey so that we are allowed to have these kindergarten classes. We thought it was so important to start this program in the fall, in September, that we are going to go to the state and say, hey, listen, we want to start this program, the board approves it. So here's how we'd like to do it, and we'd like you to help us out with this in the state. Once we move forward with that, the ultimate plan is to build a kindergarten center over at the Crescent School, with the goal of having all of our kindergarten students attend a full day at this building starting September 2022. As we look at construction, we believe that there's no way we could get this done any sooner to be a permanent placement for these kids. We'll be building 10 classrooms for a total of 15 classrooms at Crescent School, with bathrooms that will meet all the state requirements of kindergarten classrooms. The project will be completed and ready to go for September 2022 school opening. Each classroom will meet every state requirement needed for square footage and bathroom facilities, as well as our own updated COVID-19 safety measures. Now, of course, now we got to get into the weeds with the numbers. So Helen, I'm going to defer to you to kind of go over these costs, because the committee initially talked about providing all-day kindergarten in our neighborhood schools and making adjustments to those buildings. We thought this was probably a more feasible plan, and maybe we have a better opportunity now to move forward with this plan. So Helen, I'm going to defer to you, and you can go over all the costs, including our staffing costs. So you're on.
Okay, thank you. Okay, well, you'll see several items on the agenda for approval. And as Mr. Schmuse had said, under new business, there's the 3 items that he discussed. And under finance, there's 4 items that talk about the submission of the project application to the New Jersey Department of Education, amending our long-range facilities plan, utilizing our architects, land associates, and advertising for bid. When we met with the ad hoc committee, we had earlier on, I should go back a little bit, we had a feasibility study and we had identified some classrooms, and then we utilized our architect of record to look at those classrooms. And what he and Clark, well, when they were going around, what they discovered is in putting the bathrooms in the existing classrooms, it would make the classrooms smaller. So then they had a new idea. Clark had said at one point we had talked about putting an addition on Crescent. Why don't we look at that? So in looking at that option, the classrooms would all be the right size for code. So we submitted that to the ad hoc committee. To build that 10 classroom wing that Mr. Schmuse was talking about would cost about $4.1 million. And the committee said to us, okay, we realize that is for the building itself, but we also need to know how much it'll cost to do the whole project. Like to have furniture, to have technology, like what is the total cost? So we reached out to Ron Schwenke, he's our architect at LAN, and he submitted a cost estimate to us. So to add the furniture and the technology, it would be another $153,819. But really, when you build a project like this, you need to build in contingencies, escalation clauses, and everything. So he provided those numbers to us, as well as you have to provide engineering and architectural fees. So we said we want the whole worst case scenario of what this could be. So he provided a range of 4.4 million to 4.8 million. So when we started with the committee, we told them 4.1. That range is now 4.4 to 4.8. So 4.8 would be our high number. And again, that includes the furniture, that includes the technology, it includes 5% contingency. So just the contingency and the escalation total $340,000 of that. So again, you build that in just in case. So the contingency is 5% of the project for $206,000. The escalation is $133,000. So again, those are what if scenarios, but I'd much rather plan on a high number and come in less. So like I said, 4.4 to $4.8 million. We also had informed the ad hoc committee that this would not increase taxes because we have capital reserve that we can use and also surplus from this year that we can use. So what we'll need to do as part of this this motion is we would be adding this project to our long range facilities plan, and you can fund capital reserve up to 60% of that. Right now we have more than enough money in our capital reserve fund, so we could do this whole project with that. But we'll probably split it out and do the funding, some with surplus and some with this money. Mr. Schmuse had also mentioned about the staffing. The staffing total is about $763,000. And that we would have to, we would just rearrange some things in our regular, but I'm sorry, $743,462. We have some extra room from this year because certain things we just didn't do because we were closed. So we have more surplus this year than we've had in the past. So we would apply that to that. But overall, you don't want to use surplus for continuing costs. You just use them for one-time costs, but we will be fine. And again, there'll be no increase in taxes. And the other good thing is there'll be no debt. We have debt from old projects, and that debt will be dropping off in June of 2023. So this project will not incur any debt or any new taxes because it would all come from capital reserve and surplus.
Thank you, Helen. The other thing we need to consider is that due to COVID, we really don't know what the state is going to do. They could come tomorrow and come to the front door and say, we need to take X number of dollars from your surplus. So we thought it was better to do this now and commit that money so that if that does happen down the road, we're safe and we can get this project completed.
Correct, that is true, because we have reserve money in both capital reserve and maintenance reserve. And in the past, the state has gone after schools and said, you can use some of your reserve money or some of your fund balance money to offset their state aid. They cut state aid and then they make you use your own. So you want to have a fine balance of using the money that you've reserved and being fiscally responsible. So this is really a great project to use our capital reserve money for.
Well, would you happen to have the additional staffing spreadsheet in front of you?
Do I have it?
Yes.
Yes, I have it somewhere. Let me
You just let the board know how many additional kindergarten teachers, and additional other staff will be
there were
included in that.
8 additional teachers and 3 specialists.
Okay. Does
There was
anyone have any questions?
I have one more thing I wanted to add. We talked about that interim year, meaning 21, 22, how we would have to get additional toilet room waivers. Each year we submit waivers to the county. Right now we have 8 waivers. So originally we thought we might need to get 4 additional. I need to sit down with both Diane and Clark to go over this some more, but in looking at the classrooms, because we wouldn't have a KCER, that frees up those classrooms. So I'm thinking we would not probably need an additional 4. There may be 2. So we'll look at that closer, but it may be very minimal, because what we would do is utilize the classrooms within each of the 4 schools and just go for additional waivers if we need it for that interim year while the addition's being built.
Do you anticipate any difficulty at all getting those waivers?
I don't think so, because it's not a large number and it's temporary, and we have them right now. And I think maybe our waiver number in total will go down after that year, because we can shuffle some classes around into the toilet rooms.
Okay. Is it appropriate to take questions on this now? I'm not sure what the.
John, did you want me to talk about the locations?
Yes, would you?
Oh, sure.
Yes,
So,
that'd be great. Thank you.
yes, so we'll reach out to the parents of the students that we plan to reassign once the board, if the board passes the motion. But it will be about 115 kids that will be going from Osage to Hamilton, from the Franklin Avenue area. There's several streets back there. There's a high density of students there. And then approximately 27 kids would be going from Osage to Crescent. And those streets are the streets that are the county named streets. So that's not a dense area. So we thought that it made sense to send those students to Crescent in the event that those houses start to turn over and more students move in. They'll already be slated to attend Crescent. I did want to point out that the reason we pick those areas, number one is transportation, because we want to make sure that our bus routes aren't disrupted and that students aren't riding a bus for an extended period of time. The other issue is diversity. We want to make sure that we had a balance within our grade levels, within our special ed population, our basic skills population, and our ESL population. And those areas seem to fit really nicely. It really was amazing to see that approximately 1 classroom per grade level would be moving over to Hamilton. And that would decrease a room at each grade level, which was a nice balance. So that's how we came up with the areas to move to those locations.
Thank you, Diane. That concludes the ad hoc committee report.
Thank you. I want to thank the whole ad hoc committee board, Helen and Clark, for working so hard on this, and Diane Young and Dr. Gentile, but everyone really did a great job. John, I do think maybe we should take any questions right now since it's top of mind from board members.
I have a statement more so than a question. This is having kindergarten in our district is something that I have been hoping for and planning for since I got onto the board. It's now been 6 years, so I appreciate that we're able to be in a position where we can take this up and move it forward. I think it's important for early childhood education, and it's very important that we can offer this to our community. It can really make a difference for kids as they get older and move through the higher grades. And I think that our attendance at preschool which has been maxed out in many of the school many of the school buildings, shows that there's parents who are interested in having their kids in our district sooner. So I think this is an opportunity for us to meet the needs of our students and also to get on board with, an opportunity that many of our neighborhood and comparison school districts are already doing. So I'm really happy to see us moving in this direction. And I know this was a heavy lift, so I want to thank all of the committee members who are on that subcommittee. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree that this is incredibly important for the district, and that early childhood education, in the kindergarten years and even before the kindergarten years, pays tremendous yield to later educational outcomes. So thank you for doing all of this work. The only question I have for the planning committee is I know that there's a subset of students in the district right now who don't attend the district's kindergartens because the parents wanted the children to attend full day programs. And did we account for those children or for a higher enrollment than we currently have in our kindergartens as part of the planning?
I believe we did. I believe we have. Diane, you could probably answer that question.
We did. We counted for additional students. When we looked at the demographic study, they actually provided us with the number of live births within each year. So we were able to project out how many students would be coming. Plus, we also compared it to our first grade numbers. So we know at each building we get approximately, say at Signal Hill, we might get approximately 20 more students that register from kindergarten into first grade that are coming from a private district. So when we looked at our numbers, we definitely accounted for more.
I just want to say, I think this might be some of the most important work that we've done, and will be, if we can pull this through, the thing I'm probably most proud of. This will, like Scott and Marissa said, this will give us more opportunity to have access and exposure to these kids early on, which like everyone said is so important as kids are developing their reading and writing strategies. So I want to just thank John and the team, Clark and Helen, from everything that was going on this year. This could have easily gone on the back burner, and so thank you so much for remaining steadfast and keeping this on track.
So I just wanted to, I don't have a question, but I also wanted to reiterate kind of what all of my fellow board members have said. But most importantly, I know Marissa has mentioned that it's been 6 years of her time. It's been, I don't even know how much longer for Bruce and Rich. And it was really important that John brought up at the meeting that this was brought up at your last meeting, so that you guys could be a part of this, because the two of you were such huge proponents of getting full day kindergarten. So I want to make sure that you guys, the credit is also shared with you, despite not being on the ad hoc committee. You guys have been pushing this forward for years and years and years. So it's been, it was really important that this came at this board meeting in particular.
Thank you. I have a question. Because like John had originally stated, we were talking about originally converting into all the neighborhood schools, kindergarten, and now we're looking at Crescent. If you build a wing or the additional classrooms onto Crescent, are we required to have any increase in administration?
We are not required to have any additional administration.
Or, I mean, will we need extra office staffing or anything?
We would look at the school numbers and compare them to the other elementary schools and middle school, and based on those numbers would make that judgment. But I would believe that the numbers fluctuate and have fluctuated up and down across the district. And so I believe we would be able to handle it the way it is. But that's still to be determined.
And then Helen, if I may,
I'm sorry, Bruce, I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes,
Okay, you had stated, and if I make a mistake, please correct me. The overall costs will run roughly between 4.4, 4.8, all in, even with the anticipated overage for, the extra 3% and so forth. Was that correct?
that's correct. It doesn't include, that number does not include the staffing number, though. So
Right,
the-
I understand that. Now,
Yeah.
does it include lands oversight?
Yes. Yes, their oversight piece is about, let me just look. Their oversight piece is $337,890. And that includes the site survey, conceptual design, schematic design, NJDOE submissions, design, development, construction documents, bid and award, construction administration, geotechnical engineering allowance. So that's their piece.
Because typically, a company that oversees it, they get a percentage of the project for overseeing it. And you're saying that number's included.
It is. They submitted their proposal today. It says what they broke out here equals 7.37% of the estimated construction cost at the max. So it may be adjusted.
And once again, I mean, I'm not just trying to put you on the spot here, but that does include permits, fees, soil testing
Yes.
and so forth.
Yes, it does. The soil testing, I believe is in the geotechnical engineering, but yes, it includes everything possible. Again, the contingencies are built in, insurance is built in. Yes, I reassure that Clark and I were on a conference call with Ron Schwenke today, late this afternoon, saying, we want a range of how much this would cost, a high and a low, because we want to make sure we encompass everything, because we want to give you that information, but we also want to budget properly, because if we don't budget the right number and it comes in way over, then we have to cut back, or, it's not so good. We want to make sure that we have a high estimate, and we'd be happy if it came in less. So he assured me that 4.8 would be the high estimate.
Will we be doing a phase one before we start?
Phase one, meaning putting the children in the existing buildings, that kind of phase one?
No, I'm talking about soil checking to make sure we don't have any issues.
Oh, phase one. Okay, that kind of environmental test. I'm sure we will.
Thank you.
I just have one comment. I know I'm on my way out of the board, but this is very exciting. The fact that, we want to move into full-time kindergarten, and it's been really coming along in the process. And it sounds like the committee did an awful lot of work to put this together. And the presentations tonight were really good. And they were filled with a lot of facts and figures. My only concern, and what's troubling to me, is just that the last time that I had heard about this, we were at a $900,000 budget. And then coming to this meeting tonight, it turns out that it's, over almost $5 million, 4.6, 4.8 million, which I would have preferred to have received some of this information up front ahead of time before being asked to vote on it. What concerns me is the way the administration's working, and that the ad hoc committee met on November the 10th, and obviously came to these conclusions. On November the 13th, the rolling agenda went out, and there was nothing mentioned on there about this fairly large item, an important item. It was not on the rolling agenda. We had a personnel committee meeting on the 18th, and it was not put on the agenda there either to discuss the additional personnel costs that are going to be required to do this project. And then the minutes to the ad hoc committee came out on November 19th with no attachments, no numbers, nothing to give me any information to be able to make a decision like this. I know it's a great thing, and I appreciate that, but I'm just concerned about the fact that this hadn't been brought up along the way at any of these points in time either.
John, could you address why we went with this plan, this most recent plan? Which
Sure.
Helen did touch on it, but if you could address it, please.
Rich, you are right. The ad hoc committee did in the beginning have a alternate plan that was approximately $965,000 to change each individual neighborhood school building to accommodate this. During this process and prior to the November 10th meeting at the ad hoc committee, I had a phone conversation with Helen and Clark, who had an idea. And as it turns out, this idea was mentioned when we started this project a long time ago. I think Bruce Karf had made a suggestion when we talked about turning the administration building into this facility to handle this. He had suggested that Crescent would be a good site to maybe look at doing something like that. We reviewed that, and I had a discussion with Clark and Helen, and they said, "Hey, listen, we really think this is a great idea. Would you listen to what we had to say and go over some numbers and look at all the possibilities of this?" And I said, "Of course. Let's have the conversation." First item on the agenda at our meeting on November 10th was a presentation from Helen and Clark about this program. I said, as a committee, we'll make this decision together if we get enough facts to provide us the information. And we all agreed at that time, after Helen and Clark's presentation, that this was probably a better way to go, a more efficient way to go, a better opportunity for our children to fit in classrooms better, have a better environment for that all-day kindergarten. I guess we should have, in retrospect, gotten these numbers out to the full board. I did distribute the first ad hoc committee meeting notes to the board. And I didn't want to give anybody any other information until we had rock solid information on numbers. And we waited till we do that. But again, in retrospect, Rich, you are correct. I'm sure you feel a little bit uncomfortable without seeing all these numbers. The numbers are available. We can get them to you to make you feel more comfortable with that. But that's how this change in plans occurred over the course of time. It was an opportunity that Helen and Clark brought to me, and then I brought to the committee, and we had a very intense discussion about this opportunity at that time, and thought this was the way to go.
John,
Yes.
if I could just say one thing, you're right. I did bring up Crescent as well as the administration building, converting it over. These were just suggestions along the way of how we could get all-day kindergarten. I was rather excited when I heard it was going to be $965,000.
Right.
I thought at that point, it actually became a no-brainer to do it. I think having an all-day kindergarten for our district is a no-brainer. Somehow, some way, we have to get it done.
Right.
But I do agree that, I mean, this is a lot of money. And I just want to make sure that it's the best way to do it in all aspects, because as our district continues to change, I mean, you've lived through it, I've lived through it, Rich has lived through it, because we're the oldest board members here, both in age and time, I'd like to state. We've seen classrooms lighten up, where we look right now, we have a lot of classrooms that are very heavy, that we've got to think about when our population grows. You know, we may be also faced with a lot of extra space and, quite frankly, nothing to do with it except have an expense.
I agree. I mean, that's always a possibility. We know that. Again, we've been around a long time. Just know that the committee and I, especially, I mean, we don't present this to you guys lightly. It's $5 million essentially. If I was not comfortable with what has been laid out and how we have an opportunity now to do this through our surplus and other funding, I wouldn't even presented it, because I've had discussions with ad hoc committee members that I even wasn't comfortable spending $960,000 in this time, in this place, in this time frame, the place we're in right now. But after looking at this and understanding that sometimes we have an opportunity that we may not have a year from now. I mean, who knows what's going to continue with this COVID? And we're in it. We are blessed to live in Voorhees, where we have some money to do these things, and we don't take it lightly. It's a lot of money. So after reviewing all this and looking at the detailed numbers that Helen has gotten to us, I think the issue is more that I did not do the best job that I could getting that information out to the full board for your review. But we're not taking this lightly, and if I wasn't comfortable with the numbers and how they were presented to me from Helen, I have a great deal of faith in her ability to do what she does. I wouldn't even present this tonight.
And I just want to mention, this was one of the plans originally sent out. We just didn't have full numbers. So we did discuss this in the beginning. We obviously liked the cheaper idea, but after speaking with Clark and realizing that we would not be providing the best facilities for our students by making smaller classrooms and such, that this really was the best direction. And the fact that we do have the money right now, and we may not have it in the future, to do it the right way.
Please don't take me wrong. I think everybody's done a fantastic job in putting it together. My last question would be for you, Helen. That, you know, we have, you say the money in the building reserve, we have all these reserves. And if we use $5 million, clearly it depletes our reserves by $5 million. What type of situation does it put us in should an emergency arise?
Okay. Capital reserve money can only be used for capital projects, right? For construction type of things. We have $22.7 million in capital reserve. And the way it's calculated is you create a long range facilities plan of all different types of capital projects that would be done. And you're allowed to reserve up to 60% of that. So we have reserved over the years $22,700. I'm sorry, $22,700,000. So that money is there to use for capital projects. So when we did the media center renovation this year, we used that. When we did the guidance suite, we used that. So that's what it's there for. So this project, even if we added this kindergarten wing to that, we don't even have to add to the capital reserve money. We could use some of that 22.7 million to do this project. In addition, this year, like I said, we usually have surplus that we apply to the next year. This year we have more surplus than normal, partially because of there was a change in accounting from the county standpoint. If you remember years ago when Frank was here, you were permitted to take money out of capital reserve during the year to do capital projects. The county office said that's not allowed anymore. So now we have to budget for our capital projects during the year. So for the 1920 school year, the one that just ended in June, we couldn't do any capital projects. So we couldn't take any money out of capital reserve. So again, that kind of stayed still for that year. And then for the 2021 school year, we took out 1.465 million from there. So again, there is 22.7 million in there. And like I was telling the ad hoc committee, you do want to utilize that money because it's great to save and be fiscally sound. But if you don't use it, you just never know when the state may assess people's reserve money and say, oh, you know what, I think we'll cut their state aid because they have a lot of reserve. They could just use that. So that's the risk that you run. The other thing is, from an actual practical standpoint, when Clark and Ron were going through the buildings, Clark had pointed out that by adding toilet rooms to the classrooms that don't have them in there now, to make a full day kindergarten in the existing buildings, which is the $963,000 option, the classrooms would be smaller and smaller than the usual size, which is 950 square feet for a kindergarten classroom. Plus there would be construction in every one of our 4 elementary schools, and it would rip up flooring and walls and all kinds of things. So everything would be in disarray probably that whole summer. And when you put things back together, it's really not as great as the original, you know. So as they were walking around doing a site visit, Clark had brought up again, you know, if you were to, because we had 2 different architectural firms along the way, and the original proposal that we had sent out had a range of different options from the $960,000 option all the way up to a $9 million option. And we chose the cheapest one. But Clark said, can we just revisit this classroom addition on Crescent? Like, can you maybe take a look at it and price it out for us? So Clark had said, you know, like 10 rooms, a separate entrance and so forth would be great. And so that's what Ron Schwenke did. He priced it all out. But again, it took a little while to come up with the number. So when we had the ad hoc committee meeting, we had the $4.1 million number for I think it's like $275 per square feet. So it's like a 13,000 something square feet addition. So we presented it and said, okay, it meets code. Each classroom would be 950 square feet, which is great. We don't have to knock down walls or floors to put in classrooms. So that's great. We don't have to get toilet room waivers, which I know the county doesn't really like. They allow them, but that's not ideal. They're supposed to be temporary, but we've had them for years, and we would have to add more if we didn't put the bathrooms in. So it resolves a lot of the issues. And on top of that, we have capital reserve money that we do want to use each year, because we don't want the state to look at our reserve money and say, these people have a lot of reserve money, let's just cut their state aid, because our state aid is already going to be cut $300 and some thousand next year, because it just keeps getting cut each year for a 7-year period. So there's all these things to take into consideration. So taking $4.8 million out of 22.7 is not horrible. It's not horrible. It's probably a good use of that money. Plus we have surplus this year, like I said, larger than usual. So we would kind of divide the job up and maybe use the surplus money towards the furniture and the technology, and then put the rest of the project, take that money out of capital reserve. So I think it's a good use of the money, and it does show the state that we're putting something educational back into our system with the money that we have.
Well, I will tell you, I want to thank you, Helen.
point of view-
You've answered all my questions.
Thank you.
John, thank you. Everyone's put together a nice presentation. I agree with Rich. Would have been nice if we could have had it a little sooner, but you've answered all the questions, and
Yeah,
I thank you.
I'd like to be clear on what I'm saying, and just, I mean, Helen, I have complete faith in you and the numbers that you put together. I mean, you've done an excellent job in the district,
you.
and I have no doubt that, if you say that we can afford this, we can afford it. And I have no doubt, John, and the rest of the committee, that you looked at this in great detail and spent time looking at all of the options. My point is, and my only point is that, we talk about transparency, and as board members, and I would think that all the board members would agree with this. On something like this, this large, we've had conversations over much smaller items saying that we need more information in order to make these decisions. My only point is that I just think that this is something where information should have came out from the administration. I'm not blaming the committee on this. The administration should have sent out information well ahead of this meeting. And I just cited multiple touch points where it could have been brought up, and it wasn't brought up. It was brought up at the last minute, and the presentation occurs during the board meeting. I said, that's my only point from a governance standpoint, from my board member as a fiduciary duty. And I would think everybody on this board should agree with it, and maybe I'm wrong, but we should have had this information ahead of time. And Helen, I believe everything you said. I understand school finances. I understand our reserve. I understand the state's ability to take money. It might be the perfect time to do it. I understand the board's decision to come to this. I get all of that. This is a governance issue and what comes out of the administration before the meetings. That's my point.
I have two questions, one for Diane and one for David. To Bruce's point earlier about the enrollment and population, you had mentioned, I think, that you did a study, right, on birth rates. So that should take into some consideration the number of students we'll have in kindergarten and in each of the schools for the coming years?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So everybody received the demographic study a while back. We actually then did an update. And then on top of that, I sat down with Danielle and Helen, and we went through the numbers more closely just to compare with our current numbers to see how the demographic study was matching up. And we made some adjustments. They weren't huge adjustments, but we did make some. There were a couple areas within the demographic study that were flawed because we were sending students from Signal Hill over to Crescent at one point for overflow. And so that did have an impact on the numbers in the demographic study. So we were able to work through that and straighten that out. Right now, it's really hard to look at numbers because of COVID. We have a lot of students who have gone to private schools, especially with our kindergarten population. So we are really relying on previous year's data, but it's pretty consistent when we look at it over time. And we did spend a lot of time looking at the trends that we feel we have a good picture. It's not a perfect science. You know, people move in, they move out, things happen. But over the years, I think we've done a really good job of being able to balance things out when we did have an area where there was an increase that we weren't expecting and a decrease too. So we feel pretty confident that it's as close as we can get, and we'll be able to adjust if we need to.
Thank you. David, I'm wondering if you could speak to your view of this proposal. I think we've heard a lot from Helen and we've asked a lot of questions of John, but I'm curious about your thoughts.
Yeah, I think from an instructional point of view, this is an investment into the community's future. I think it makes a lot of sense in the way the project has evolved through this ad hoc committee, which I think is the point, and the way it was designed was to allow multiple viewpoints and input. Originally retrofitting classrooms with bathrooms just so that we could be in the minimum compliance to house the kindergarten classes, you know, seemed like a viable option and an okay option. But the way that this has evolved into what I feel will really be, you know, a very high quality kindergarten program. I really think it's going to provide the early childhood environment that this community deserves to have. And I'm excited about the way that this has changed and evolved over time. And I think John did a great job as the ad hoc committee chair and the rest of the committee in really, you know, fleshing this out. I've talked before about the multiple benefits of full day kindergarten and what it provides in terms of that foundation for learning. And more than ever, I think it's important that we're going to have an opportunity to get our Voorhees students in at the earliest possible time and really give them a great foundation for their futures.
Do you have concerns about the financial spending related to it?
No, I don't take it lightly, but this, again, I think it's been said a few times. This is exactly what a healthy community budget and school district is supposed to do. They are supposed to set aside money and investment money for capital improvements that will allow them to do things like this. So I think that it's a good use of a lot of money. And I think in the end, it is what this community will be glad that they invested in for the future of the school district.
Helen?
I echo Rich's concerns, but I thank you all for your comments and answers.
Helen, I wanted to say you are correct, because I seem to recall John and Rich could probably echo if they recall this also. Years ago, I believe the state came in and took like 900,000 out of our reserve. Well, they didn't take it. They reduced what they gave.
Yeah, and if it wasn't the reserves, it was the fund balance, because there was a time when I think the fund balance was reduced, and I think that's when it went down to the 2%, and they did it to all districts. If anybody had over, I think the 2% in fund balance, they reduced their state aid and used that towards it. But reserves are kind of at risk too.
Well, Helen, as always, you're well prepared. Thank you. And
Thank you.
I appreciate all the information everyone else has given me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, they did come in and take a bunch of money at one point in time, and that would be a real concern right now with COVID and the way things are going, is the fact that the state could come in and actually take some more money from us.
And it's usually unannounced and after the fact.
Correct.
Right?
Yes.
You can't plan on it. Like, you don't even know it's
No.
coming. And I know in my past, like 2 times in July, they reduced state aid, and your budget's already set. You're already moving forward to the next fiscal year, and now you have to adjust. So it's scary.
Right.
It's scary.
I can guarantee you they'll always do it, Helen, at the worst time.
Could be. So you have to always take that into consideration.
Okay, John, thank you for your report. And I do want to reiterate, the reason for the delay was not administration or because we were holding anything out. John wanted all of the numbers, all of the possible changes, and that was why there was a little bit of delay in getting the official numbers out. At this time, we're going to take audience participation, but we will not take public questions on the full day kindergarten until the board as a whole votes on it. While the board is limited in its ability to respond to public on matters involving personnel, litigation, negotiations, and attorney-client privilege, the board will now hear comments from the public relating to items on the agenda for this board meeting. Comments are limited to 3 minutes. The board will not take action this evening. You will be notified at some later time by letter, electronic mail, telephone, or in the context of a latter board meeting of any action the board does take. So Michelle, if you have any questions with regard to the kindergarten, if we could hold them to the public session at the end.
Okay, there are a few. I'll wait until the end and read everything.
Okay. Aside from that, are there any public comments at this time?
Not related to any agenda items.
Okay, board comments? Okay, there is no transportation items. Ms. Galliano, could you take policy items number 1 through 2?
Sorry, yes. I would like to approve a motion to move 1. Hold on, I need to get my bearings here. Is this 1 and 2 on the agenda?
Okay, do we have a second?
Making sure that there wasn't a change. Thank you. Sorry.
Rachel Vanaken.
Second.
I'm sorry, who said second?
Second.
Dr. Falk,
Yes.
Ms. Galliano,
Yes.
Dr. Levy,
Yes.
Mr. Nelson,
Yes.
Mr. Schmutz,
Yes.
Mrs. Van Auken,
Yes.
Mrs. Watson,
Yes.
Mr. Carp,
Yes.
Mrs. Wallace.
Yes. At this time, Mr. Nelson, could you take personnel items numbers 1 through 25, please? There was an addition. Number 25 is a motion to approve the retirement of Rhea Snyder effective 2/28/2021.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to approve items 1 to 24 and the addition of 25 on the agenda.
Bruce Carr,
Second that.
Dr. Falk,
Yes.
Ms. Galliano,
Yes.
Dr. Levy,
Yes.
Mr. Nelson,
Yes.
Mr. Schmutz,
Yes.
Mrs. Van Auken,
Yes.
Mrs. Watson,
Yes.
Mr. Carp,
yes.
Mrs. Wallace.
Yes. There is no deferred action. Ms. Watson, could you take new business items numbers 1 through 7, please?
I'd like to move items 1 through 7 under new business.
Rachel Vanaken, second.
Dr. Falk,
Yes.
Ms. Galliano,
Yes.
Dr. Levy,
Yes.
Mr. Nelson,
Yes.
Mr. Schmutz,
Yes.
Mrs. Van Auken,
Yes.
Mrs. Watson,
Yes.
Mr. Carp,
Yes.
Mrs. Wallace.
Yes. Our next meeting will be held January 6th at 7:30. It will be the board reorganization meeting, location to be determined. Then our next full board meeting will be January 27th, 2021 at 7:30, location to be determined. Audience participation, while the board is limited in its ability to respond to the public on matters involving personnel, litigation, negotiations, and attorney-client privilege, the board will now hear comments from the public. Comments are limited to 3 minutes. The board will not take action this evening. You'll be notified at some later time by letter, electronic mail, telephone, or in the context of a latter board meeting of any action the board does take. Ms. Santor, can you please read off any questions or comments?
Yes. Mike Redfern, 74 Saratoga Road, Stratford. I would first like to thank Mr. Nelson and Mr. Carr for their many years of service and commitment to the entire Voorhees community. As an employee of the district for over 3 decades, a parent, an association member, and a board president, I hope my comments tonight will provide a unique perspective. So please bear with me, and I hope Michelle can read fast. To Dr. Gentile and all the board members, thank you for all your time and efforts as we continue to navigate these unprecedented times. As a board president, like some of you, I have had to do much soul searching over the past several months, careful balancing of educational needs of the students and the challenges of the teachers while attempting to ensure the health and safety of both, attempting to juggle the many cohorts and consider the needs of those families who choose all remote as they are also taxpayers, and finally trying to thread the needle of an all remote learning, not only as a tool to contain an outbreak, but as a means to prevent one in the first place. We can all acknowledge the Voorhees reopening plan was not perfect. No school district in the state can make that claim. While there may be some shortcomings, let us not lose sight of our accomplishments. Unlike our sending high school, we were able to bring our students back to some in-person instruction in early September with minimal disruption. During my time in Voorhees, we are frequently compared to our neighbors in Cherry Hill, who just returned to in-person instruction last week and will now pivot back to all remote until January 19th. While extraordinarily time-consuming and frustrating, our teachers continue to be creative, adapt, and overcome the many obstacles that have and continue to evolve. The spread of COVID in our schools has been minimal due to the safety protocols and mitigation techniques that are in place. Social distancing, masks, cohorts, small class sizes, making contact tracing manageable, limited capacity on school buses, windows open, snacks, mask breaks, and classes held outdoors, cafeteria workers repurposed to sanitize common areas. Inherently, Mother Nature will take some of these measures away on her own. As my father always told me, if your glass is always half empty, get a smaller glass. As a parent, this pandemic is affecting everyone. If it's inconvenient, it is challenging, it is time consuming. My wife and I are writing college tuition checks for my daughter to sit in her apartment bedroom, 100% remote, and will continue to be all remote for the remainder of her academic year. She will be entering the workforce soon, and I can only hope that she will graduate with the tools needed to complete with no additional years ahead of her to catch up. My youngest is a junior in high school on a hybrid model. Twice a week, my lunch hour consists of getting her home after a half day of instruction. I am waiting in the car line with nurses, electricians, plumbers, grocery store employees, police officers, and landscapers, all inconvenience, but making it work. My daughter will begin applying to colleges next year, and I can only hope that she too will graduate high school with the tools to complete and no additional years to catch up on. And on Friday, November 20th, shifted to all remote until January 19th, 2021. As an employee for over 30 years, I would like to take a moment to recognize my colleagues, the teachers, support staff, custodial staff, cafeteria workers, bus drivers. Their hard work and commitment to the district during these times is second to none. They are spending countless hours maneuvering around cohorts A, cohorts B, and cohort C, and the full remote students. On any given day, you will find as many staff cars in the parking lot at 5 p.m. as you do at 10 a.m. Their entire profession has been turned upside down, but they are working through it. Many of which then go home to work with their own children who are on a hybrid model or are looking for an elderly family member or looking after an elderly family member. It is truly unfortunate that it took a worldwide pandemic to recognize teachers as essential employees, when the truth is they have always been essential. Voorhees can come out on the other side of the pandemic, we always do, and we will be stronger because of it. In the future, we will continue to debate, have disagreements, and face additional challenges. At times, we may even simply need to agree to disagree, but we would never stop listening. There is no denying this holiday season is going to be difficult. What we do today will affect tomorrow, what we do tomorrow will affect next week, and what we do next week will affect next month. As a community, teachers, students, and parents need to double down on our efforts to control the spread of the virus during the holidays. It is not time to participate in an ill-advised, reckless behavior that we all need to do our part to ensure the health and safety of our community. I believe everyone in this meeting can agree that no one wants to see another state lockdown and a mandatory stay-at-home order. Should that happen, we can blame the governor, Dr. Gentile, the board, the teachers. But we will need to look at ourselves and place blame accordingly. Thank you for allowing me to speak. Have a safe holiday season. Okay. Stephanie Kaufman. Hello, I would like my statement to be read at the board meeting tonight. I currently have a first and fourth grader, and as much as I understand the health risks associated with catching COVID, I don't think we are fully considering the social and mental health repercussions for our young children. These children are used to an entirely different way of learning and are now being forced to stare at a computer screen for 5 hours plus any additional time needed for homework. Studies have been done, as the one stated below by the National Institute of Health, citing that this much screen time is detrimental to children of this age. I get you believe you are protecting their health from COVID, but I beg you to understand this problem could be way bigger than COVID and much longer lasting. It is completely unhealthy and irresponsible for the districts to mandate this on our children and expect that they keep their computer video on at all times, even when they are taking a moment to compose themselves after crying or getting frustrated, or to make sure their work is submitted on time, when an app or document is not working as expected. These unrealistic expectations are all psychologically affecting our children. Below are 2 major points from the National Institute of Health that I believe need to be cited and really considered in the district's plan. The first brain scans from the study have been analyzed, and researchers have concluded that children who spend more than 7 hours a day on screens experience premature thinning of the cortex. Gaia Dowling, one of the study's authors. The study also found that children who have more than 2 hours of screen time a day got lower scores on tests focused on thinking and language skills. Sincerely, Sherry Kaufman. Stephanie Kaufman. Her address was 15 Rollingwood Drive, Voorhees, New Jersey. Jamie Deckard, attached is a letter to be read tonight at the Board of Ed meeting from the Voorhees parents advocating together. Please read the letter in its entirety and do not limit it to 3 minutes. It is on behalf of 182 parents. Dear Dr. Gentile and Voorhees Board of Education members, this letter is being written on behalf of a growing group of concerned parents regarding the handling of our schools and educational plans during the pandemic. Please note that the signatories of this letter not only represent a portion of the group as a whole. This list is not all inclusive, and the group continues to grow. We have a district full of bright, intelligent, eager to learn students and amazing educators. We need our children to have more time with our educators. We are writing to advocate for 2 distinct goals. First, we are advocating for reconsideration of your decision to require the entire district to transition to a fully remote schedule for at least 6 weeks. Second, we ask that our students are provided with a full day of instruction with the focus on core academic subjects such as language and reading arts, math, and STEM subjects. First, a recent decision to require students to transition to a fully remote schedule. On November 19th, 2020, Governor Phil Murphy issued a joint message from himself, Governor Andrew Cuomo, Governor Tom Wolf, as well as several governors of Northeastern states, which reads, medical research, as well as the data from Northeastern states from across the country and from around the world, make clear that in-person learning is safe when the appropriate protections are in place, even in communities with high transmission rates. In-person learning is the best possible scenario for children, especially those with special needs and from low-income families. There is also growing evidence that the more time children spend outside of school increases the risk of mental health harm and effects from their ability to truly learn. Based on the medical and safety data, CDC information, and the lack of COVID transmission within our schools, there is no justification for forcing all students within our district to be remote for 6 full weeks. The above joint statement from the Northeastern state governors reiterates the importance of in-person learning and supports our position to allow our schools to remain open and operate under the successful safety protocols which they have implemented thus far. The CDC director also came out with a recommendation against closing the schools. CDC Director Redfield stated, we need to make data-driven decisions. COVID is acquired in the household, not the schools. School is the safest place to be, and we shouldn't have emotional responses to close our schools. In addition, the middle school and district elementary schools are completely different entities and should be considered as such. As Dr. Young recently noted, the staffing issues are much more prominent at the middle school compared to the staffing issues at the elementary schools. The elementary school classrooms are self-contained, and contact tracing is much easier than at the middle school. Dr. Young also noted that the schools are being closed for anticipated staffing issues. It is absolutely unacceptable to close schools in anticipation, in anticipation of something. At this point, there appears to be no medical or safety-based reason to force elementary schools to transition to an all-remote instruction and take away the very small amount of in-person instruction that the district is offering to our children. If there is an infection in any of our schools, the middle school included, closing for 14 days per the CDC guidelines would be more than sufficient to quarantine and not further spread COVID. As other districts have had temporary transitions to full remote, the transition was done with the clear goal of getting students back to the in-person study as soon as possible. This does not appear to be the case in the Voorhees decision to transition to a fully remote schedule for all students in the district. In addition, we have recently learned that the schools will be open for in-person instruction for those students with an IEP or a 504. This conflicts with the information we have been given about your inability to staff the schools. There is no justification for the inability to staff the schools if teachers and children with an IEP 504 will be present. Although students with an IEP or 504 may have different or additional needs, this does not diminish the need for all students to have the option for an in-person instruction when safe and medically appropriate. Second, we are deeply concerned with the continued shortened school days and urge the superintendent and board to provide transparency into when we can expect our children to resume a regular school hours, regardless of the learning model available, such as all remote, hybrid, or in-class. The teachers are doing a fantastic job and working incredibly hard to fit what they can into the shortened school day. However, there is not enough time to adequately teach, particularly when other non-academic activities are scheduled into the day. What are the benchmarks to return to a full day of instruction? Can we please consider alternative scheduling to minimize interruptions into the school day? For those parents who are concerned with too much screen time, perhaps the daily schedule can be adjusted. The balance of the regular school day could be allotted for non-core academic activities, such as specials, which take away from core academic instruction time, primarily utilize videos for instruction. In summary, we are advocating for the superintendent and board to reconsider both their plan for the entire district to transition to full remote, as well as a reconsideration of the shortened school day. The Voorhees Middle School and District Elementary Schools should be evaluated as separate entities, only requiring full remote when that particular population requires, and only for the amount of time needed to ensure the safety of students and teachers. As parents in the district, it is concerning and disheartening that our children are not being provided with enough thorough and fair education, and that they are constitutionally entitled to and deserve. We would like to remind you that it is the fiduciary responsibility of the Voorhees Board of Education is to represent the best interests of the taxpayers as well as represent the needs of the students and parents of the community. We have amazing educators in this district, and our children desperately need more time with them, both through full day schedule and additional in-person learning. Thank you for your time and consideration. Good evening. My name is Nicole Nicklaw, address 29 Redstone Ridge. I am writing to request that the district reconsider the blanket closure of all schools for 6 weeks, with no consideration given to the structure of the schools, whether classes are self-contained, infection within the particular schools, and lack of transmission in and at our schools. I also ask that the district consider reinstating full school day for students. We have amazing educators and students who are eager to learn. We need our children to have more instructional time with our educators to fully recognize their potential and provide them with an education that they are entitled to and deserve. Our elementary schools and middle schools are structured in very different ways, and it is concerning that all schools are being treated with this blanket approach. While closures may be warranted in certain scenarios, this should not be the default approach. Schools should be treated as distinct populations, only requiring full remote when that particular population requires, and only for the amount of time needed to ensure the safety of students and teachers. In addition, we have recently learned that schools will be open for in-person instruction for those students with an IEP or 504. Although students with an IEP or 504 may have different or additional needs, this does not diminish the need for all students to have the option for in-person instruction when safe and medically appropriate. I am also writing to inquire about whether there is an intention to resume a full school day. Although the day has been extended by 30 minutes, our school day is still approximately an hour and 20 minutes shorter than normal. Why is the district still on a shortened day plan? I please urge the superintendent and board to be transparent as to whether a full day is being considered. If resumption of a full day is a consideration, what benchmarks are required for a return to a full day of instruction? We have amazing educators in the district and our children desperately need more time with them, both through a full day schedule and in additional in-person learning. Thank you for your time. Sincerely, Nicole Nicklaw. Suzanne Bland. Will you be able to add my statement to the board meeting tonight? Statement for the board. Please reconsider your plan for next month. We are in the middle of a pandemic with numbers that are rising. The idea of a pandemic seems to have been lost in many of our discussions. This is not forever, but we need to remain safe for all students and staff. I cannot control parents that travel and are not being as safe as possible. This is dangerous for all. Teachers cannot teach from home with great success. Teachers can teach from home with great success and safety to all involved. Why wouldn't you want the children to receive an education that can keep all involved safe? To the Voorhees School District and Board of Ed members and Dr. Gentile. My name is Mike Friedman, 7 Fir Lane, Voorhees, New Jersey. I was informed that in-person attendance was not allowed at today's meeting, but I wanted to take a moment to send a letter in support of the mission of the newly formed Voorhees Parents Advocating Together. I first want to thank the majority of the board, Dr. Hill and Dr. Gentile, for allowing children with special needs and IEPs to continue going to school in person. It is so important that these children be allowed to continue to attend in person, as remote learning is ineffective for so many of these kids, including my own children, despite the valiant efforts of our wonderful educators. That said, in addition to the special needs community, I support the mission of VPAT in advocating for in-person instruction for all Voorhees children. Despite the fear-mongering we heard before the start of the year arguing against a hybrid option, the evidence reflects that our schools have not been a source of community spread in any regard. The smattering of cases that we've had have originated outside of school, and to our administration's credit, we have quickly addressed each one of these cases and kept our children and educators safe. Forcing these kids now to go all remote does not appear to be based on science at all. In fact, none of the governors in the tri-state area have argued for such closures, despite using draconian measures in the early part of the pandemic to shut things down, and medical experts almost universally opine that the damage to children not learning in person carries far greater potential damage than the infinitesimal risk of catching COVID-19 from going to school. Therefore, I, along with the other fine parents of VPAT, would ask the Board of Education to resume in-person learning as soon as practical, as well as to the extent school days are possible, as well as to extend school days where possible, so our children receive the in-person education they deserve and are entitled to under the New Jersey Constitution. Thank you for your time. Janelle Franklin, 1149 Gold Pond Court. Can you please provide additional details regarding the reassignment of some students from Osage to Crescent and E.T. Hamilton? How many students will be reassigned? How will the district determine which students will be affected and whether they will be assigned to Crescent or Hamilton? Trisha Chadwick, 101 Blue Ridge Road. I have questions regarding the agenda items from school changes for Osage and Crescent. First, how will it be paid for? Will this money come from the education budget that is already lacking? Will this entail redistricting? From where and what neighborhoods will the students move? Will it just be kindergarten that moves from Osage to Crescent? Why are we expanding a school that isn't at capacity when Osage is overflowing? Are toilets and sanitation not of the utmost importance now? Will siblings be split up? How long will the bus ride be for students coming from across town? The current travel time from Osage to Crescent is about 15 minutes by car. With several bus stops on the route, it would not be unreasonable to assume a bus ride could be at least 40 minutes or more. Have you considered diversity, especially socioeconomic and cultural diversity within the schools, and how redistricting will affect those schools? I hope these questions will be answered, and all of the scenarios that affect our community will be addressed and presented in a transparent manner before a decision is made. Thank you. Tony Clark. I'd like to express the gratitude of our association for the service of Misters Karf and Nelson. Their devotion to the students and staff of Voorhees School System cannot be overstated. Thank you, gentlemen. Hello, my name is Janine Greeley and I'm a 5th grade teacher. Today was the first day of full remote with the extended 30 minutes. With that being said, that means our students are now sitting in front of a screen for 5 hours with just a short break. How is this fair to our students? Has anyone done the research on the long-term effects of the physical and mental health of our students being in front of a screen for that much time? Jamie Deckard, Dr. Gentile and the Board of Education members, Dr. Redfield, Director of the CDC, Dr. Fauci and the governors have all come out in recent days urging educators to open the schools even in the areas where COVID transmission is high. These highly regarded physicians and policymakers are asking us to make data-driven decisions. COVID is acquired in the household, not in the schools. School is the safest place to be, and we shouldn't have emotional responses and close the schools. You have the power to make the biggest impact in the lives of the children. They have been suffering in silence for far too long, and it is time you start doing what is right for them. The Department of Health has only made the recommendation that you consider going full remote. You have chosen to go full remote, while other districts have received the same recommendations from the Department of Health and are keeping the hybrid schedule in place. I ask you reinstate the hybrid schedule immediately. Thank you, Jamie Ostino. Rocky Desai, I would like to have the following statement read aloud. While I understand the position of making decisions for the schools is not easy, I also think there needs to be more transparency about what is happening and clarity about the expectations of all parties involved, from parents to teachers to students. The kids are suffering both academically and emotionally from these decisions. If in-school is not an option, it needs to be a fuller day, focusing on core subjects so that our children do not fall behind. Crystal Love. Dear Board of Education members, my name is Crystal Love and I have lived in Voorhees Township for 34 years and all 4 of my children have matriculated in the Voorhees School District and I have been an employee of the Voorhees School District for 12 years. Thank you for this opportunity to speak before you tonight. I am speaking tonight as I am concerned about the overall safety of our community members, myself and my colleagues. Camden County currently has the highest rate of COVID-19 positive cases in South Jersey. The number of cases continues to rise each day. It is imperative in order to control this virus that everyone stays home and avoids contact with anyone outside of those with who they live with as much as possible. Although it was hard last spring, we adjusted and met and exceeded the needs of our students to ensure that they received the best education possible from our remote home locations. We were able to do that successfully because we had no daily fear of contracting this insidious disease, COVID-19, and possibly exposing or being exposed by someone else. Since we are approaching the category of becoming a red county, and to ensure the safety and health of our community members, students, and staff, when will this district go fully and totally remote? At cost, will we remain open? Respectfully submitted and most sincerely, Crystal Love. Janine Martin, 14 Redstone Ridge, Voorhees, New Jersey. As a Voorhees resident, I requested that the Voorhees Township Board of Education table agenda item number 3 under new business, motion to approve the plan presented by Mr. Schmoose for construction of a kindergarten center at the Voorhees at Crescent Elementary School for all kindergarten students to attend for the 2022-2023 school year. I requested this vote be tabled until the Voorhees superintendent and or the Voorhees Board of Education provides and publicly presents the plans that were considered to the taxpayers of Voorhees Township. As it appears to me, the board is trying to push through a capital building project that the community of Voorhees has heard nothing. Since the October 10th, 2019 board meeting where Dr. Gentile gave background and overview for establishing a full-day kindergarten for the district, the residents of Voorhees have heard nothing more than the plans for all-day kindergarten, let alone building a kindergarten center. Again, I request item number 3 under new business, construction of a kindergarten center be tabled from tonight's agenda until the taxpayers of this district are fully informed not only on the cost and financing of a kindergarten center, but also the options the district has to consider. Alicia Daniels, 1130-12 Bibbs Road. Good evening. The agenda has something about expansion of Crescent. I want to find out what was explored for Osage besides moving our children to other schools. The school has been overcrowded for a while, and I was wondering how you arrived at this decision to give more support and updates to Crescent, but no expansion plans for Osage. This seems unfair to our side of town, which feels overlooked. And since the kids are not in school right now, is this what your focus is rather than using your time and resources to help get them back into the classrooms? Janelle Franklin provided her address, 1149 Gold Pond Road. Rachel Weinstein, would full-day kindergarten get music, art, and gym classes? If so, would this addition require additional music, art, and gym teachers? Caitlin Boschnack, what is the status on the additional students going to Hamilton from the additional housing being built on 561? Were those students counted when considering the number of students being sent over from Osage? Janine Martin, 14 Redstone Ridge. I am completely and utterly appalled. This board 100% denied my right as a taxpayer to speak about an agenda item and then just voted to spend $5 million of taxpayer money without any comment from the public before you voted on it. The agenda specifically notes in the first notice of audience participation that the board will now hear comments from the public relating to items on the agenda for this board meeting. And Mrs. Wallace, the board president, denied not only me, but also any and all taxpayers of this district their right to participate by blocking any comments on the kindergarten center that is on tonight's agenda. I emailed a comment at 7:32 p.m. for the first audience participation on the kindergarten construction item, and it was not read before the vote. Mrs. Wallace, as board president single-handedly denied my right to participate via audience participation. I deserve and demand an explanation. There are no further comments.
Thank you. David, do you have any comments at this time or no?
I can briefly go through some of them. In particular, it becomes obvious when you listen that there's a wide difference in opinion based on the comments, and I think the opinion towards what is right in terms of the program for the kids at this point, whether to be fully remote, whether to stay open, those sorts of things. I want to just say that at the end of the discussion and debate, I make the decision that I think is in the best interest of the school district, best interest of our students and staff. But it's also largely based and will be based in the coming days on what the health department tells us our responsibility is as a school district, because that is the governing body that we have to answer to in terms of our health and safety. I am, as a parent, I get confused too with some of the messages that come out of the various parts of the state, whether the governor's speaking or you hear different things. But the health department's written guidance to us is very clear. If the county moves to a red status in their regional matrices, the only thing that is in that red status in terms of programming says implement fully remote learning. I'll defer to the board solicitor as to what exactly that means for the district, but my belief is that that does not provide us with a real choice. As it is in orange and nearing red, I believe in orange we still have a choice, although it says consider fully remote, which is why we took the mitigating step to reduce the overall number of people in our schools so that the positive cases that are reported do not take out multiple staff members through the quarantining and close contact requirements. Again, there does not seem to be any easy answers or clear answers as we try to navigate through this time. But I will say that there are many positives that I think we all have to be, thankful for and happy about, in the sense that we did open in a hybrid model. We were able to keep that going up until just recently. And I will get that hybrid model back implemented as soon as I feel it's safe and safe to do so. So again, I listen and I hear our parents, various points of view. I hear our staff members. I know our students are really going through a hard time, because I see it with my own children. And no doubt about it, these are tough times, and I'm going to continue to do the best I can to try to provide a good education for our students.
Thank you. Does Howard want to respond with regard to the interpretation of the health department's?
Sure. I'll just basically echo what Dave just had to say, that if in fact there is a determination that we're going into red, my advice, just from the potential liability associated with not going full remote based upon that guidance, if and when red happens, my advice to my district is very much to go full remote, because I wouldn't want anyone to say that we violated the directions of the health department and somebody somehow got hurt or was impacted, student, teacher, anybody in our community. So right now, we are where we are, but come red, I don't see any choice that this district would have. Obviously, it's Mr. Gentile's call, but that would be my recommendation.
Thank you. Any board comments at this time?
I have a couple of comments. I think that assessing the risk to our students and our community is very complex, and I'm not sure that everybody is necessarily seeing this in the same way. So I just wanted to put out just a couple of clarifying statements on how I would assess the risk of the community and how I would assess risk in schools. So right now, our community case rate is approximately, in Camden County, 56 cases per 100,000 persons. And I think that it's important to keep in mind that our students are part of our community the same way that all of the people are, or all adults are part of the community. So when you think about that case rate, what that equivocates to is about 1 out of every 250 people you come into contact with per week would be positive for COVID-19. Whether or not those are children, adults, it's 1 out of 250 people, which is, a significant number. I think when you think about the number of people who are on campus in school in a hybrid model, each week, we're probably going to have 1 or 2 people, whether or not those are teachers or whether or not those are students, who are going to be positive for COVID. But I also think that there's a little bit more complexity to the risk. One of the things and one of the things that we keep hearing about is that students and having schools open doesn't increase community risk, but it also doesn't decrease community risk. So whenever people are coming into a high level of contact with each other, there's going to be some degree of increased risk. So I think we need to look at children who are going to school as active members of our community who are interacting with each other. The other part of risk, which I think doesn't get enough attention, is the stresses that having increased case numbers put on our health system. So I could tell you that in the hospital where I work, 3 weeks ago, we had 8 patients with COVID, and we had 1 person in an ICU. And as of this afternoon, when I left, we had 60 patients who had COVID. We had 15 patients who were in an ICU, and that number was only so low because we had 3 patients who died in the last 24 hours. So I think that there's definitely real stress on the health system, but I'm hearing from our colleagues at Cooper Hospital, which is, I think is, the major player for Camden County, and from Virtua Health, which is, another one of our major centers, is that they're feeling a lot of stress, not only from their, for patients and taking beds up in the hospital and not having enough capacity, but also staff members who are getting sick and who are required to go out on leave. So I think that when we think of ourselves as a big community, it's important not only to assess, I think, the risks within the schools, but also the risks for the entire community. And when we're thinking about balancing that risk, I also think that we need to balance it across the fact that we have no evidence that being on screen when you're actually doing something like active learning is going to have all the ill effects of the screen time studies, which were done for children who are playing video games and watching TV. So I think that what we're doing is we're balancing known risks versus what's a, sort of like a black box of an unknown risk. And we're not really sure what the long-term effects of this are going to be. And I imagine that there's going to be some community stress and trauma from this crisis for everybody who's gone through it for a very long time. And I think, when I think about generational crises, people who were in the Great Depression, they never recovered. And they always kind of had that in the back of their mind with a lot of the things they did, and it always affected their psyche. And I think that this is going to be similar for our entire country and our entire community. So I think that, given all those facts, that Dr. Gentile is doing a tremendous job working with the County Department of Health to make decisions that aren't only right for our school district, but are also right for our community.
Thank you. Any other board comments at this time?
If it's okay, Dawn, I just wanted to say something to everyone. I just wanted to take a moment to thank the Voorhees Township residents that have allowed me to serve the Voorhees district for approximately 18 years. It has been a true privilege to watch over your children as they have received an education here second to none. The parents of our district have always been thoroughly involved in their children's education. I believe that this has always been one of the major ingredients to our success. The second ingredient has always been the wonderful and dedicated educators that teach your children. Their ongoing dedication to making a difference in each and every child is what has always kept Voorhees the leader in providing a top-notch education. And it is this that provides a solid core for each child to succeed their future educational endeavors. Over the years, I've had the pleasure to work on the board with so many different people as they've come and gone after leaving their mark. Well, now it's my turn to go after serving our community. Cohesiveness between the residents and the faculty, along with the administrators, it is what always has allowed our district to grow and be a leader in the educational community. I can only hope that the same environment finds its way into the future of our district. So I sincerely wish only the very best for our district in the future, and may God bless everyone. And from my family to yours, happy holidays and a happy new year, everyone.
Thank you, Bruce, and thank you again for your many, many years of dedicated service. Any
Well,
other?
I'd like to make a statement. Thanks. Obviously, this is my last board meeting. I've had the privilege of serving our community as a member of this board for 21 years. I'm sad to see it end, particularly at this time. Over the years, I've worked with some terrific people, and I am grateful for the time we spent together. I'd like to thank everyone in the district for their help throughout the years, and I would like to thank the members of the community for putting their trust in me for so long. As a final note, I would like to take this time to wish the board and its new members all the best. We have a great school district and a lot to be thankful for. Have a great Thanksgiving. Thank you.
Thank you, Rich. And again, thank you for your many years of dedicated service. Any other board comments at this time? Okay, Mr. Schmooze, could you take finance items numbers 1 through 10, please?
I'd like to move items 1 through 10 under finance.
I'll second it. Bruce?
Dr. Falk,
Yes.
Ms. Galliano,
Yes.
Dr. Levy,
Yes.
Mr. Nelson,
Yes.
Mr. Schmus,
Yes.
Mrs. Van Auken,
Yes.
Mrs. Watson,
Yes.
Mr. Carp,
Yes.
Mrs. Wallace.
Yes. At this time, I'd like a motion to adjourn.
Bruce
Motion to
Clark makes the
adjourn.
motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Have a good evening, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Don't be the first one.